Yo, welcome back to the Legacy Podcast. Today, we welcome back Brittany Juliano and talking about how you can form healthy habits step by step right now in your life. It's your inspiration of the week, and I'm your host for Legacy, Kinsley Jordan, once again welcoming you back to your favorite podcast and videocast, where we're talking about crushing goals, igniting dreams, and forging a legacy in your life each and every day. Once again, I want to welcome you back because we're so thankful to have you with us. If this is your first time, make sure you hit the subscribe button right over there and get the bell so you can get the notifications, because you don't want to miss the content we have coming up literally today. I've been looking forward to it for weeks as we had our first couple podcasts several weeks ago talking about how we think, because if we're thinking about changing our life and setting goals and going after our dreams, we have to understand ourselves.
Exactly.
We're talking fast thinking, slow thinking, which was awesome. First time I've heard it in that format. And then after that, we're talking about the importance of getting your mind in the right place in a place of success.
That's absolutely right. Yep. Psychology is the name of the game for success. So,
And that leads us straight to, if we're talking about goals, which we do here at the Legacy Podcast all the time, if we're talking about setting goals, there's something that gets overlooked and missed oftentimes. Even myself, I found myself focusing on the goal of saying, hey, this is where I want to go, but I forget to look at the system that's important to get us there. So we're talking about healthy habits, how to have healthy habits and get ourselves established with the madame of mental health right here, Brittany Juliano, once again. So glad to have you with us here today as we dive into healthy habits. And I don't think we can overstress the importance of why habits are so important.
Oh, yeah. And I think I want to start off with this quote because I love it. It says that the secret to your future is hidden in your daily routine. And I think so often we think our future is left up to fate and that kind of thing. Like whatever happens, happens.
It must be the will.
Right? Yeah. But I wrote this down. We're a slave to our habits and we call it fate.
Yeah.
So whatever our habits are, that is the trajectory of our life. And I think that we can absolutely show where we're going to be 10 years down the line if you look at your habits.
Yeah.
And so many people just think, oh, well, this is fate. This is why I'm here. This is why I have no money and all of this kind of stuff. But that's just you calling your past habits fate. And really, it's just your habits that you haven't checked in a while. And so I just think...
Say that one more time. I want to make sure we throw that up on the screen as kind of our first point. Man, we haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet, and that's already a hard-hitting point. That you are...
Yeah, but that we are a slave to our habits, and we call it fate.
Yeah.
And how oftentimes have we seen that? And we do that as well. I'm sure so many times. But if you want to know the secret to your future, it's found in your habits.
Yeah.
And this is the coolest part is that if you really tried 1% each day to get better at something, maybe one thing, two things, three things, 1% better, by the end of that year, you'd be 37 times better at that certain thing than you were at the beginning of the year.
So the first time I read that, I was like, 37% increase. That's great. It's not talking about a 37% increase. We're talking about multiple kids of 37 times more efficient. You would accomplish more, not just a 37% increase. There's a difference between that for all of our math people. You love that. Yeah. 37 times more efficient and effective and productive. That's huge.
Yeah. And I think the coolest part, because I think sometimes we think in terms of examples. And so just so everybody knows, just to resource people, we have this book. It's called Atomic Habits. This is what a lot of these ideas are coming from. And it's by James Clear. It is probably if somebody said, what is the number one book you would recommend? Obviously the Bible, right? Yeah, and then the second one would be Atomic Habits. It's life-changing, I promise you. So definitely read this book. But they start off with this story, and I thought it was so cool. But it was about the British cycling team. And so they hadn't won any gold medals at the Olympic meets in over 110 years. Wow. And they had never won a Tour de France in over 110 years.
Tour de France.
Tour de France. There's your Oklahoma accent for you. But so then they thought, okay, we need to bring this guy on. And his name was David Brailsford. And he was coming on as the director of performance. Yeah. And so he had this crazy idea of how to change the whole entire program that was different from everybody else. And he called it the aggregation of marginal gains.
Yeah.
And so pretty much the philosophy was if he could just find tiny improvements in every area that involved cycling, then they would win.
Yeah.
Like just tiny improvements, 1% improvements. So here was some of the things that they did. They redesigned the bike seats to make them a little bit 1% more comfortable.
Yeah.
They rubbed alcohol in the tires for better grip. Their shorts had heating in them so that their muscles would be at just the right temperature. They brought in surgeons to teach them how to wash their hands properly so that they wouldn't get colds or sick, and so that they can continue to train all year round. They even tested like pillows and mattresses to determine if they could get just 1% better sleep than the rest of their competition, then they could do it.
That's
and they did all of this stuff. And this is the crazy part. After 5 years, they dominated the track and cycling events in the 2008 Olympics, and they won 60% of all the gold medals in their area, which is unheard of. And then 4 years later at the Olympics in London, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records.
That's insane.
And then they won the past 5 out of the 6 years of the Tour de France cycling, which is crazy. That's unheard of. And so you look at an organization that literally just said, if we just improve our daily performance 1% in the smallest areas, then as you can tell, like it was remarkable results. And that is the power of habits and improving your daily life through your habits 1% every day.
Yeah.
So I think it's habits is the secret, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To a successful
life.
And
I think a lot of people, when you think about trying to progress or be better at whatever it is, if you're setting a goal and you're trying to learn piano or you're trying to get better in investments or you're trying to work out or whatever it is, one of the things that people don't think about is they just look at the amount of time they're doing things or how many times they have to do it. And they think, oh my gosh, in order to grow that I have to do it this number of times. But they forget about the aggregate result that every time you do something, every time you repeat an action, which is what a habit is. Every time you repeat an action, you are literally starting from a higher place than you were and accelerating farther than you previously could have. And that's the importance, when you talk about finances, because that's one of the critical 5 areas we focus on at The Winning Coach is if you look at finance, compounding interest is huge because you make money on the money that made money for you yesterday.
Right.
That you want to compound the success you have. And that's the nature of what habits are. It's wild you say that. A real world example. So I'm an instructor pilot in the Air Force, you know that. And one of the things we've been focusing on the last several years is pilot training. And how do we allow students to accelerate their training? Because the system that we previously had was really regimented. It was a syllabus. Every student will fly this sortie, and on this sortie you will accomplish these things. But one of the things we realized is that didn't take into account the individual learning style and ability of the individual student, because some people learn faster than others. But what you had to do is enable them to build habits at their pace. And if we were able to allow them to build those habits at their pace, we realized they would learn more and they would start at a higher place than they were, and they would go farther each individual time instead of forcing them into this regimented schedule of you will only do this type of training on this day or on this type of sortie. And the huge, as you said, the huge benefits that are created by allowing yourself to continue to build a system each and every day where you're growing off of what you learned yesterday. And a lot of times we don't think about that. When we think, we're your winning coach here. It's our job to help you think about setting the goals and thinking of the dreams and formulating a system and a process to be able to achieve those. But there's not enough credit given to setting habits in your life such that you can achieve those goals.
Absolutely. And I think so oftentimes we get so excited about the idea of goals. And we don't hear nearly enough about habits. And I mean, you think January is a couple months away or in the past. And the big thing was setting New Year's resolutions. And, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. This is my goal. Where's my dream board? Let me put it up. And
throw my vision board.
Right?
On my vision board, people.
And the sad part is after the first month, the majority of people drop off. Right. And I think the reason why is because people aren't understanding that goals are not accomplished by seeking and focusing on the goal and writing your goals down and making a dream board, but goals are accomplished by the system that you have in place.
Yeah, completely.
And I think that's where we get it wrong, is that our results in life have little to do with the goals we set and everything to do with the system in place to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, the world in essence has pretty much the same. Successful and unsuccessful people have the same goals.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to save money. We want to have a nice house. We want to spend more time with our families. We want to live a calm, peaceful life. We want to do this and that. We all pretty much have the same goals. But what sets us apart isn't our goals. What sets successful and unsuccessful people apart is their process or the system they have in place to accomplish that. And so I think people are spending way too much time in Hobby Lobby picking out stuff for their dream boards and not enough time saying, okay, what is a process that that I can do daily? One thing that I can do daily. So that each day I'm 1% better and maybe eventually I'll reach that goal. So goals set us in the right direction, but processes and systems get us there.
Huge. They're huge.
Because
seriously, a goal, exactly what you said, a goal is nothing more than a vision. It's nothing more than a target to be able to get. But the mechanism that allows you to travel the distance is habits.
Exactly.
And that's why if you've I'm a huge believer in the full focus planner, and it's not necessarily for everybody. It takes a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of effort to be able to pour into it. But one of the things I love about it is that it forces you to identify the goals of what is it that you want to accomplish. But it doesn't stop there. That's one section, and the entire planner is tons of pages, and the pages are focusing on one of the things I love is it forces you to build what is your morning ritual, what they say morning ritual. What is your workday ritual? What is your evening ritual? And it forces you every single day to be held accountable to saying, did I do something working towards my goal? Did I do something today to encourage me to get closer to my success? Did I build a habit? And it forces you to say, gosh, man, like my goal is to 7 days out of the week to be able to do this, or 6 days out of the week, and I only did it 3 days out of the week. It keeps you accountable to what that is. And that's so critically important. That accountability is hugely important because, again, it's not about how much success you can get in one attempt to doing it. Because if you think about weight loss or lifting weights, you're not going to double what you can lift or double the amount you can run, or you're not going to lose 20 pounds of weight in a single day in any healthy format. It has to be a process.
Right.
And anything that is worth achieving is going to require a process, a systematic process enabling you to get there over a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And I think that point you made about the beginning of the year, when people have their New Year's resolutions and goals, they get so focused on the goal and they get frustrated with the results because they think the victory, and this is important, they think the victory is in setting a goal. Yes, that's an important piece, but the victory is in executing the steps to help you accomplish, get to the goal. Has nothing to do. So 2 weeks down the road, they look at it and be like, well, I only lost 5 pounds. Well, that's 5 less pounds you had before.
Right.
But they call that defeat because they haven't seen enough movement toward their goal.
Right.
When in fact, the real victory is just the movement day after day, step by step, getting there.
Absolutely.
Hugely important.
And as we've been talking about it in all these podcasts that I've gotten to do with you, is that really your success in accomplishing your goals is 80% psychology and then 20% everything else. But I think you have to set goals, and you have to have a process that caters to positive mental health. So let me describe it this way. I think whenever we're goal oriented and not process oriented, as you were talking about, you only are happy when you meet your goal, and happiness is a stone like it's always barely out of reach, and you can never be excited or celebrate, and therefore your mental health is not going to be able to carry you through to
because then you're just having to will yourself to continue instead of seeing a victory that day.
But so that's the point of habits, because they're daily, and every day, as you talked about, when you accomplish that, then you get to rejoice. So this is what I had to change, because I have always my whole life wanted to get to a certain body type. I've really wanted to be as healthy as I possibly could. And so I decided this year, okay, instead of me wanting a 6-pack by May, which has always been my goal, okay, by May I'm gonna have a 6-pack. And I never ever had gotten a 6-pack by May, right? So then I was like, okay, now I'm just going to focus on my system. Every day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to work out for a minimum of 20 minutes. And then Saturday will be my stretch or my rest day. And so that became my victory. It wasn't an end goal. I took my mind off of the fact of this dream body and I put my victories being daily and my habits, which was working out at least 20 minutes a day. And like, this is the longest I've ever been able to keep this habit because now I celebrate every single day. And I'm happy. Like I wake up and I'm like, I don't have a six pack, but I did 20 minutes at least. And I get to celebrate that every day.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. Huge. And I want to ask you right now, go to the comment section. If you're watching on YouTube, go to the comment section right now. I want to hear from you. Are you a creature of habit or not? Do you like your habits, or is what we're talking about a struggle and a stretch for you? And right before we cut to a break real quick, I was just thinking of the example. I've also gone through this journey. I was a hefty boy several months ago, still working on it. But I went through this journey starting in November where I was like, listen, I got to start running. I got to start working out, because when you think about it, my goal is to be able to build a legacy for my kids, and you can't build a legacy if you're dead. I mean, you can't do it.
True.
So you got to be healthy. So my goal was exactly what you're talking about. I'm just going to run every day. It doesn't matter whether it's a half mile. I'm going to run every single day except for a couple days at the end of the week. So 5 days a week I'm going to run, and my goal is a minimum is going to be a mile and a half. But I'm not going to start at a mile and a half. I'm literally going to go until I just feel exhausted. I'm going to take a break. And at first, honestly, when I was running, I couldn't even go a half mile without getting totally winded and having to stop. So then I said, okay, I'm going to do intervals. I'm going to focus on doing 3 miles worth of intervals because I need to, run and then take a break, run, take a break. And before you know it, it gets to the point where you look forward to coming home and going for your run because it's a victory. You've marked it off the calendar. It's something. And when the focus stops being whatever the end goal is of, oh my gosh, like how far am I in my journey of trying to lose 30 pounds? Because you can get frustrated. You can get to the end of the week, especially working out. You can get to the end of a week's worth of workouts where you say, oh my gosh, these are so awesome, only to find out you've gained a pound. And you're like, what are you talking about? Well, how in the world did I get it?
And you were perfect. You thought you were perfect.
The meal was perfect. Your workouts was perfect. And then somebody tells you, well, muscle weighs more than fat. So of course you're going to, and you're like, oh, that's not the point.
Right.
But it's those small stepping stones of getting you to your goal. Don't get frustrated with where you're at in the process. We've got to learn to love the process.
Yeah, that's good.
So one of the biggest challenges we're going to talk about when we come back real quick is how do we do that? What are the step-by-step processes we can do to build healthy habits in our life so we don't get frustrated with our goals, but instead each and every day we are charging forward to what our success looks like right here on the Legacy Podcast. Hey, stay tuned. We'll be with you in just a second. And thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe right here on the Legacy Podcast. Hey, thanks for watching the Legacy Podcast with your winning coach, Kinsley Jordan. Now, don't forget, you can subscribe right now just by hitting the logo right over there, and make sure you hit the bell so you get notified when new great content is available to you. Also, you can follow and keep up with me at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube by just going to Kinsley Jordan. That's my tag where you can find it. Also, if you're looking for a performance coach like me to be able to help you reach your goals, just go to www.kinsleyjordan.com and sign up. I'm right here to help you achieve your goals and build a legacy in your life. So let's get back to the Legacy Podcast with more great content right here. Yo, welcome back to the Legacy Podcast right here with your winning coach, Kinsley Jordan, and although she hates it, the Madame of Mental Health. Yay. We'll come up with a better name, I promise. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in once again right here to the Legacy Podcast. However you're consuming this, whether it's on the podcast itself or the video cast, we love having you as one of our participants, and we want to hear what it is that you want to be hearing, the content you want to consume. So please, in the comment section below, make sure you leave your comments so we can actually stay in tune with you, because you don't want to miss this next session. This specifically breaking down the 3 points that we have to have in our lives in order to be able to build healthy habits. Because as we just previously were talking about, there's so much importance in building the habits, not just the goals, but the system to be able to support it. Yeah. Huge. And it's really simple. There's 3 things to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think like we've been talking about, the most important thing is you should be educating yourself. And these 3 points come from this book, which I'll throw right here, but it's Atomic Habits by James Clear. And so if you want to go in a deeper level, I encourage you to definitely go grab this book, go read it, because we're talking about 3 points. They really talk about about 4 points. And then they also do the opposite, where how do you get rid of bad habits? So I think you should definitely pick this up. But
nobody has bad habits.
Right?
Nobody has bad habits, so we have to get
But nobody does. As you were saying, there are 3 things that you can really use in order to start building up your good habits. And the first one is you have to make it attractive.
Yeah.
You have to make it attractive in order to start a good habit.
And why is that?
And here's the reason why. If you think of anything that you naturally start picking up as a habit and you want to repeat over and over again, all your high-forming habits start because they are high dopamine habits, where they create this level of dopamine that transmits into your brain and says, I really enjoy this. I really like this. Yeah. And so, you think about eating junk food, gambling, drinking, drugs, or we could go to the more normal ones, like having a hug, like giving each other hugs.
So you're saying these are like chemical physiological reactions to, because a lot of times I don't think a lot of times people actually think about these mental exercises, the things that we're doing to bring satisfaction to us mentally actually have a huge physical impact on us.
Absolutely.
A physiological impact, that there are chemical reactions happening. There are things happening, whether it's neurons firing or communicating to your brain, releasing chemicals in our body to make us feel this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that literally your neurons are firing, and it's telling your brain, I really enjoy this. I want to do this again.
Yeah.
So if you want to start a habit, you need to be pairing dopamine activities with your new habit, because how many times are our new healthy habits, do they create dopamine? Like checking our emails, going through, making sure they're all cleared out, working out. I mean, working out does create, endorphins in your body, but in order to get there, you need to pair it with something that makes you excited. So one way you can do this is through temptation bundling. So this is a very basic strategy, and this is what temptation bundling is. It's you pair something you want with something that you want to start doing. So for example, this was an example I read in the book. This lady, she really, really needed to go through all of her work emails at least once a month, because they were building up to I think she had 10,000 emails.
Yeah, because nobody's inbox.
Some people,
don't check my inbox. I'm just saying, don't.
Please. But every month she also got a pedicure, and so she decided, okay, I need to start this new habit, but I'm going to temptation bundle. So while I'm getting my pedicure, I have to go through all my emails during the pedicure, because her pedicure was around 45 minutes, and so it gave her plenty of time to go through her email. And so the only time she could get a pedicure is when she checked her emails. Wow. And so if she wasn't prepared to get, she couldn't get a pedicure. And so that gives you an attractiveness to your habit, where you're like, I want to do this new habit. Here's another one, which I had a friend, and she's lost, I think, 40 pounds doing it this way. But the only time she could watch Netflix and her favorite show on Netflix was if she was biking while she was watching it. And so whenever it's a great idea. Right?
Gosh, that's a great and great idea. A great idea. We're changing our thinking. That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
But that's a way to make it attractive, because working out naturally is not attractive to us. But when you temptation bundle, there's a temptation ooh, I really want to watch my show, so I'm going to go work out. Or, ooh, I really want a pedicure, so I'm going to go check my emails.
And those things take your mind off of the task at hand.
Right.
I mean, oftentimes you go to the gym, you see people running, they have their ear pods in, they're listening, and they're watching to something. It takes the focus off the pain of it and equates it to something that you enjoy.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Actually, whenever I started my working out in, January, like everybody else, I decided when I work out, that's the only time I get to listen to my favorite podcast.
Yeah.
And that was the only time I was allowed to listen to it. And so
Which is the Legacy Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. It's awesome.
Right. And so, but that's the fun part, because I'm like, oh, I can't wait to listen to this next episode of my podcast. So therefore I'm going to go to the gym so I can listen to it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
It's interesting. One more example I was thinking of is in pilot training for the Air Force. We call these significant emotional events. That when we're actually talking about the training with students, we know that there's a great training opportunity when there's been a significant emotional event for the student. And most of the time that means getting them to the stress level of which they're we call it the peak. You get them right to the peak where they're like, I cannot consume one more ounce of information because I am maxed out. Sometimes that's, flying wise, that you're in the weather, it's socked in, you have 4 different radios you're listening to, trying to take instructions, descend down to be able to get on approach to be able to land. And for a student, this is like, oh my gosh, but they will always remember. When you get to those stressful situations, when you're able to pair a memory with an emotion, like those significant emotional events, you will always, always, always remember that. And that, when you talk about, and this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but when you talk about people kind of going into the, a significant event happening, they say everything's slowed down. You're able to remember things. You remember, you store away that information differently because of the significance of what's happening. People who talk about a car crash, or they talk about, something dramatic that's happened, they remember details about it. But if you ask them, hey, what was the car that drove by you on your way to Walmart last week, they're not gonna care. Right. It's because how your brain stores that information. So when you're talking about making your habits attractive, you're just setting yourself up for success. You're putting a memory, you're putting a habit in conjunction with an emotion, which you're going to remember, you're going to store, you're going to bring it back to remembrance, and it makes it easier. Kind of going back to the point that we talked about, we just got to be a little bit better every single day.
Every single 1% better. That's all that's required. And I like how you just said that it's easier whenever you pair it. And that's the second point. The second point, first point obviously is make it attractive. Second point is make it easy.
Make it easy.
Make it easy. And I think especially, talking on the point of New Year's resolutions, I think so many times we get really excited because we're like, okay, it's January and I really want to start working out now. I want to start my business. I want to start my podcast. I want to do this and this. I want to write my book. I want to make a homemade meal once a day. So we have all this excitement building up because we've been thinking about our New Year's resolution for so many months. And right when it starts, we have these huge goals. We have these huge ideas of, I'm going to work out every single day for 1 hour. I'm going to do this and that. And that is probably the number one reason why New Year's resolutions do not continue on past pretty much like a month is because they're not easy enough for you to continue when you've lost that excitement after the first week. And so you need to make it easy enough for when you have no motivation, it's easy enough where you'll do it anyway. And there's this law, it's called the law of least effort. And if humans had to choose between two options and one was just easier than the other, they would in essence always choose the easiest route. And so you want to go the path of least resistance psychologically, which is start your habit and make it very easy. Here's a practical strategy. It's called the 2-minute rule. So when you, at least in the first week, if not the first month, whenever you start a new habit, you want to be able to do it in at least 2 minutes. So for example, if you want to run, instead of saying, well, I'm going to run 2 miles every day, to start your habit, you'd say, I'm going to go into my closet, I'm going to grab my running shoes, and I'm going to put them on. That takes 2 minutes. And that's the start of a habit. Every single day, that's what I'm going to do. Or instead of, I'm going to write 1 chapter a week in my new book, instead it's, I'm going to write 50 words a day. Instead of saying, I'm going to read a whole book every single month or every single week, like some people that we know, what you can say is instead, okay, for 2 minutes, I'm going to read. So that's 1 page. I'm going to read 1 page a day. And so you make these habits easy to start so that you can do them in 2 minutes. Because here's the thing. Once you start a habit and it gets almost unconscious where you just do it. When you go home, I'm in my closet. I'm grabbing. You'll start wanting to do more and more and more and more every time. So make it easy.
I swear this literally happened today. So there's this one phone number I always call because dealing with finance stuff and budgeting stuff. Because another one of my jobs is innovation. So I'm constantly dealing with contracting and funding and stuff like that. So there's always this number that I end up dialing. And it's so interesting. It's like conditioning. I've conditioned myself. Normally when I get an email from this person, I end up having a call and clarify what they mean. So I opened up my email and read the email, and before I knew it, they were on a phone. I was like, "Oh, did you call me?" And they said, "No, you just called me." I was like, "I didn't just call you. I didn't." I was so conditioned to getting in the habit of setting myself up for whether it's success or in that case, so conditioned to literally calling this person. whenever I get an email, I did it without thinking about it. So if you equate that to your habits of making them easy, when I started running again in my journey to lose 30 pounds, hey, we're getting there. We're getting there. It's good. On the journey, I did exactly what you're talking about. In the evening time, before I'd go to bed, I'd set out my running shoes, I'd set out my socks, I set out my shorts, I set out my the jacket thing, and then I wear running, make sure my headphones are charged. So I didn't. When I got up in the morning, literally the only thing I had to do was put my feet in the shoes, put my jacket on, plug in my earbuds, and I'm out the door before I even have a chance to think about it. Now, of course, going back to my morning ritual, then it morphed into 2 glasses of water, 50 push-ups, 30 minutes of reading, and then I go do my. But it makes it so much easier because you don't have to think about it. Easy is easy. Easy is easy. Make it easy.
Make it easy. Yeah, and as we were talking, people often ask, well, how long does it take to form a habit? But that's the wrong question. It's how many does it take to form a habit?
Yeah.
How many times can you do this so that the habit will form? And I don't think there's any objective answer on how many. I think it just depends on the habit.
Yeah.
But the more times you do it, the more it becomes a habit where it's just like second nature to you and you want to do it. So you have to, you got to start off easy so that you know for sure every single day or however many times you want to do this habit a week that is done and it's easy enough. I know for sure even when I don't want to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So
interesting. There was an article, and then we'll get to point number 3. There was an article I was reading about exactly that, the number of times it takes to form a habit, because in this whole venture of pilot training and kind of redesigning, re-engineering to take more of a psychological, educational development approach to it instead of just doing a syllabus, we're looking at that number. What is the right number? And one of the interesting things is that exactly that. It has nothing to do with the amount of number. It could be anywhere from, we've heard 21 days before. It takes 21 days. You got to do something. First, you have to do it 7 days in a row, and then the next hurdle is 21 days. Well, okay, that's maybe an okay average, but it actually has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with, one, your mentality towards whatever it is you're trying to do. Yeah. And realizing that that average time frame can take anything from 7 days to 6 to 8 months.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, which was wild to look at it because our pilot training program initially, it took 7 months to do it.
Right.
So the numbers were lining up, but the interesting thing that got me is that it's all about the mentality you have towards the thing.
Right.
If it's something you want to do and something you're ready to tackle and something you're ready to dive into, it's not going to probably take you as long because you're desiring to do this.
Yeah,
you're trying to pair those mental thoughts to the actions.
Yeah.
And anecdotally, it was really interesting that the students that we saw in some of the tests that we were doing, the students that were excited and ready to accept a challenge, they were ready to dive into it. They were okay. If they failed at something, they were okay. They picked themselves up. They took less time to complete the training course.
Yeah.
As opposed to the people who were afraid, more reserved, they didn't want to accept any risk. They just wanted to do it by the book. They took longer to do.
Right.
Which goes right back to the habits. It's about framing your mind, getting your mind wrapped around it, and being excited about what you're doing. And it has a potential to cut down on that timeline.
Yeah.
Now, it's not guaranteed, but it was really interesting to see
that's good.
that parallel between your mental preparedness of where is your mind in reference to, are you excited to do this thing? Is it attractive to you? Are you making it easy? It was just really interesting.
Yeah, because I think, if it's attractive, you're going to be excited to do it. And then if it's easy enough, you're going to want to keep doing it. So therefore, just as you were talking about, they're excited to do it and they're doing it a lot. Therefore, it becomes a habit quicker than those who aren't excited or attracted to do it. So as we were talking about, the first one is, you got to make it attractive.
Make it attractive.
The second one is you got to make it easy.
And number 3.
You ready for number 3?
Number 3. Let's bring it.
Number 3 is make it satisfying. So this is what's interesting about these 3 points. The first 2 points, make it attractive, make it easy. Those are so that you start the habit. This last one is so that after you do the habit, you want to do it again the next day.
Yeah.
So this helps you want to keep doing it. So if you look at the behavioral theories, the whole theory is what is rewarded will be repeated. And so if you have some type of reward after you do your good habit, then you will want to repeat it the next day and the next day and the next day. And so it's one of the easiest ways, one of the easiest strategies to do this is use reinforcements. So use rewards. So in essence, whenever I work out, my reward after I work out in the mornings is, and I'm just a water person. I love showers. I love baths. I'll jump in the shower, wash off, and then I'll soak in the bath for a good 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Then I will go make my favorite breakfast, and I can only make that favorite breakfast breakfast after I've worked out. And so, and I feel so excited to do that.
Yeah.
And I want to do that the next day. It's
Yeah.
a reward. And then the second strategy is use a habit tracker, because it's crazy to think that checking off a box and seeing the streak that you have of doing that habit,
Yeah.
it makes you want to do it just knowing that you get to check off the box that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
As small of an idea, as small of, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't seem like it's this huge cosmic thing, but it's the same reason why you set up a chore thing for your kids.
Right.
You don't have kids yet, but you set up a chore thing, and if you ask them to clean their room and you promise them a sticker if they do it, it changes. Literally, the world changes. It's like you just gave them $1 million,
right?
Because you're going to give them a sticker, and they're excited to be able to do it. It seems so simple, but it has a huge impact.
Right.
A huge impact.
Oh, absolutely. And I think if we, as people who are trying to create good habits, if we can just keep that in mind of, you know what, it's not just all grind, but you can put in those reinforcements, those rewards. You want to make it fun. As you were talking about, those who have an exciting outlook on their habits will keep doing it, and they'll develop the habit quicker than those who aren't excited about it. And so have fun rewards. Maybe after, you write, I don't know, for every day for a whole month because you want to write a book. Let's just use that one. At the end of that month, you and your whole family get to go to Leonardo's or, just something easy. Go to the park. It can be free.
Yeah.
But it's just these small things. Make it fun, make it exciting, and you'll keep doing it.
Yeah. And one of the things about that, because we've talked about setting goals before, to talk about having smarter goals. And one of the things in that is making sure that you have a reward, you have something at the end of that. But I think what you said is really important, is that don't save those rewards just for the end goal, because your excitement can wane. It can slow down. So make sure, exactly as we were talking about, that you have these satisfying goals, that your everyday effort has something attached to it. For you, it's that favorite breakfast.
Exactly.
For you, it may be, I don't know, getting to go get a coffee, going to Starbucks, getting a coffee, whatever it is to you. But that's really important, is equating what you're doing to something that truly satisfies you. Huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the daily reward is the important part.
Yeah.
You should do daily rewards, and then do a monthly reward, and then do a 2-month reward, and then do a year reward. Just do as many rewards as you want to do it. And here's the thing, your reward needs to be something that benefits your habit and not another bad habit. So for example, I shouldn't go eat a chocolate cake as my reward after I work out, because that's going to start a bad habit that's not going to sustain my healthy habit I'm trying to start. So you should just be very careful with what your rewards are, and make sure it helps your new behavior thrive.
Yeah. Man, there's so much good information. Literally 30 minutes just blows by every single time we sit down. Every time we sit down to do this. Guys, thanks so much for listening to the Legacy Podcast today, as we're talking about healthy habits with Brittany Juliano right here. Listen, don't forget to subscribe at the button right over there. Make sure you hit the bell to be able to get the notifications. But most importantly, we want to hear from you of what are the habits, what are you putting into your life to make sure that you're reaching your goals by first establishing a healthy system with healthy habits to make sure you're able to make your way all the way to the success that you got right there in your noggin. So join us next time for the Legacy Podcast. Thanks again so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys later. Thank you.